Earlier this week, the Canadian government announced incentives for the adoption of medium and heavy duty electric trucks. So I'm going to talk to Evan Pivnick from Clean Energy Canada about that. So welcome to the interview, Evan.
Great to be here.
Maybe we could start. Can you give us an overview of what the government actually announced?
Yeah, so the Government of Canada has rolled out their purchase incentive program for medium and heavy duty vehicles in Canada. This is something that was highlighted in the ERP and in Budget 2022. It's a purchase incentive similar to what people may be aware of with the passenger vehicles, where fleet owners and operators can seek actually an upfront discount on the purchase of a zero emission medium and heavy duty vehicle. So the program, the manufacturers are provide that discount up front and then seek reimbursement through the government.
What kind of numbers are we talking about? Like how much are they entitled to apply for reimbursement?
Yeah, it really breaks down based on the class of the vehicle, which is the weight of the vehicle. So the heavier the vehicle, the heavier the battery, the larger the incentive. So for Class 8, the really large trucks that you'd see on the road going long distance, the incentive is as much as $200,000. And then it goes down from there for the different classes.
Now, I interviewed a company in Vancouver, 7 Gen Capital, and they're introducing a trucking as a service model where basically if you have, you're a medium duty, heavy duty, maybe short haul heavy duty fleet owner, they will give you a turnkey package. So you get the truck, you get the electricity, you get all the insurance, you get everything. All you have to do is provide the driver and away you go. And so in the case like that, who gets the incentive? Is it the truck owner or the fleet owner?
Yeah, so it would be whoever the purchaser of the vehicle. So this would only apply to new vehicles being purchased. So the model that's been rolled out in that business is fantastic to lower the barriers of entry. A fleet manager might know very well how to procure and operate a traditional, internal combustion engine MHDV, but an electric vehicle is a totally different vehicle. It operates differently. It needs charging at specific points. The procurement is different. They've lowered the bar of entry there by being able to provide a lot of those pieces up front. But I imagine they're the ones that would be seeking the actual vehicle purchase incentive.
Now, the incentives, the benefits of the incentives, and what the government is trying to do, of course, is cut emissions. The transportation sector in Canada is the second biggest emitter, and commercial vehicles make up about a third of that. So they want to cut emissions. And you mentioned the emission reduction plan that the government introduced earlier this year. The goal is also to save fleet owners money. We talked about that a bit, but also to support key Canadian manufacturers. And I don't think Canadians understand that we're actually, within the North American context, Canada's got two or maybe three or four medium heavy duty manufacturers like Lion Electric in Quebec and New Flyer in Manitoba that are very competitive. And I would imagine that they greeted this announcement with some enthusiasm.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is, they're the early adopters on the manufacturing side. They've been producing Canadian-made vehicles, zero emission vehicles for a while now. They've seen Lion Electric has orders in the tens of thousands, at least in sort of backlog through various companies. These incentive programs coming in and just helping reduce that upfront cost, which is really the fundamental barrier, means that these manufacturers are going to stand to see a whole bunch of new companies being able to come forward and suddenly access these vehicles. So it is really a boon for the manufacturing industry as well. And, I think one of the side benefits may very well be an expanded capacity, depending on how quickly we see this adoption pick up.
Right. And you see that in other countries. I mean, they do it in the US, they do it in Europe, they do it in Asia, where when you've got a new industry like this, a nascent industry, one of the incentives that are provided like this help support that young growing industry. And then eventually it can, they get enough momentum and they're able to stand on their own. But I would think that I'm kind of surprised we're a little later to the game in Canada than in some other countries.
Yeah, I think the whole world over the last 5 years seems to have really shifted an awareness to medium and heavy duty vehicles. So you definitely have seen some early leaders. China is way out ahead. There's countries in the EU. California has had their programs in place for well over a decade and been working on this. Canada's actually been a relative leader globally in setting targets. What's been needed for so much longer, though, is the policies. And this is the first policy. And I'll say, given this was really announced and put on the table just earlier this year, staff should really be commended in how quickly this program has been put together and how much it builds off the best practices that we've seen from other jurisdictions like California. That ability to lower the upfront costs, as I said, being one of the chief barriers, is really about getting more electric trucks on the road. We need to have our industry experience these. We need government to see what the procurement process actually is like. If we don't get this started, if we don't start deploying trucks, we're always just going to be chasing targets and theories of what it could look like. This helps make it real for a large number of new companies.
I'd also like to point out for viewers that they can go onto our YouTube channel, and within the last month or two, I've done 2 interviews, one of them with the BC Trucking Association, about how tampering with emissions controls on heavy duty, particularly long haul trucking, is rampant in Canada. So whatever the emissions estimates are from this, they're probably much worse because companies and individuals are buying equipment that tamper with, it's like our own version of Dieselgate on the commercial side. And so the shift over to electric will do a lot to fix that particular problem. And that leads me to my final question, which is that in addition to incentives, I think your organization is now arguing that there actually needs to be a policy and regulatory framework that needs to be updated.
Yeah, we see really 3 key pieces. So the purchase incentive, addressing that upfront price cost, is huge and it matters. And again, government should be commended in moving quickly on that. The 2 other pieces are infrastructure. It needs to be deployed. It's not going to be like light duty vehicles. Each truck has its own what's called a duty cycle, way it operates on the road, how often it can be away from the charging station, how far it can go. That's going to be a mixture of public and private charging infrastructure, and it's going to be costly, and it can't just fall on the operators alone if we really want to see these scale quickly. So really advancing that infrastructure piece. And the other one is a sales mandate, similar again to what we've seen in the light duty vehicle or in the passenger vehicle space. On the supply side, we need to start to drive a bit more regulations that start to push these into the market. We need to make these front and center. We need to ensure that as demand is increasing, the supply is there to meet that demand.
When are we likely to see the ZEV mandate on the medium and heavy duty side? Is the government talking about introducing that in the near future?
It's something that I think conversations have really just started with. There's been a few consultations earlier this year to start to explore this. I think it's given the space is so complicated, it will be a complicated policy. I'm not holding my breath for it immediately. I think the quicker it comes in, the sooner we can start to have additional conversations about infrastructure and start to see these vehicles really hitting the roads.
Well, Evan, thank you very much. Really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, great to be here.